Welcome back to Klepper's Corner, Today in History. Today we're diving into the magic date of February 10th, that one square on the calendar where humanity seemed to collectively say, let's shake the Etch-a-Sketch of civilization and see what falls off. It's the day empires collapsed, treaties redrew continents, scholars and townsfolk reenacted the world's worst orientation week, and supercomputers beat humans at the one thing we thought we were good at, thinking. So buckle up, because Today in History is one long reminder that the universe has a sense of humor, and that humor is usually dark. Segment 1, Empires that Imploded. On February 10th, let's start things off light, with the total annihilation of one of the greatest civilizations in world history. On February 10th, 1258, Baghdad fell to the Mongols. And if you've ever had a bad Monday, I promise you it wasn't as bad as this Monday. This was the moment when the Abbasid Caliphate, the jewel of the Islamic Golden Age, said, maybe we should have updated our defense budget sometime this century. And the Mongols said, great idea, too late. Now, Baghdad at the time was the intellectual supercity of the planet. It had the House of Wisdom, the world's most sophisticated libraries, scholars who could calculate astronomical positions without melting their quills, and administrators who wrote long treatises about how irrigation works while somehow forgetting to keep it working. Enter Hulagu Khan, who shows up not with curiosity, but with catapults, a multinational army, and the energy of a guy who's already decided what he's having for dinner, and it's your city. By February 10th, the walls have cracked, the defenders are out of ideas, and the caliph surrenders, hoping for mercy. Never a winning strategy with people who rode into town on horseback and considered set building their favorite hobby. The Mongols then proceed to level the city so thoroughly that historians still argue about the death toll because there wasn't exactly a census officer surviving to fill out the paperwork. The Tigris allegedly ran black with ink from the manuscripts thrown into the water and red with blood from the scholars who once wrote them. It was basically the original mixed media installation, unfortunately, extremely permanent. Baghdad never fully recovered. The center of the Islamic world shifted, intellectual life decayed, and the idea of global knowledge sharing took a century-long nap. And all because February 10th saw a philosophical powerhouse go up against a civilization that thought peace treaties were just pretexts for asking your enemy to hold still. Segment 2, the Treaty of Paris and the accidental birth of America. Jump forward 505 years, February 10th, 1763. We're in Paris, where diplomats from Britain, France, and Spain are negotiating the end of the 7 Years' War. The war historians call the first true World War, and the rest of us call the one where every country apparently hit reply all. Britain walks in having technically won everything. They beat France in North America, they beat France in the Caribbean, they beat France in India, and somewhere in the middle of this, France said, okay, fine, but can we keep the islands with sugar? And Britain, thinking Canada is basically a winter internship with no pay, said, sure, take the stuff that makes money, we'll keep the beavers. France essentially traded a continent for pastries, rum, and beaches. On the bright side, this is the only time in history the French have ever undersold how much they love a good fur coat. But here's the twist. This treaty, this global reshuffling, is exactly what sparks the American Revolution. Britain suddenly has mountains of debt, the kind you don't pay down by selling merch, and Parliament starts taxing the American colonies, who respond like teenagers discovering chores. And since France was now out of North America, colonists no longer had the "you need us for protection" excuse to stay loyal. So February 10th becomes the day Great Britain won the world and accidentally set the countdown clock for losing America. It's the geopolitical equivalent of buying an expensive car you can't afford and then wondering why your credit score looks like a golf handicap. History doesn't just repeat, it occasionally laughs in your face. Segment 3, Town versus Gown, the Oxford riot that wouldn't die. Next stop, February 10th, 1355, when Oxford University students and Oxford townsfolk reenacted the world's earliest and least healthy tailgate brawl. The fuel? Bad wine. Yes, the medieval era was fragile. Two students complain the wine tastes like someone fermented it under a horse. The tavern keeper complains the students taste like entitlement. Someone throws a drinking pot, and suddenly, Oxford turns into a budget version of Game of Thrones. Bells ring, mobs form, arrows fly, and by the time the dust settles, dozens are dead and both sides are ready to file competing Yelp reviews. But the real kicker is the punishment. The king sides with the university, because nothing says impartial justice like the monarch choosing the group that educates his future bureaucrats, and orders the town to pay an annual fine and send the mayor and dignitaries on a bareheaded walk of shame every February 10th for 470 years. Nearly half a millennium of municipal "sorry about murdering your students" cards. I can't even return my library books on time, and Oxford somehow remembered to atone for a bar fight until 1825. They finally reconcile officially in 1955 because apparently, after 600 years of simmering resentment, everyone realized, wait, we're fighting over a Cabernet from the 1300s. This entire story is a masterclass in historical pettiness, and February 10th is its official holiday. Segment 4. Cities built for empires that didn't survive them. Now let's jump to February 10th, 1931, when the British Empire proudly unveiled New Delhi as the new capital of India, looking every bit like a regime that believed it had centuries left in the bank. Spoiler alert, it had 16 years. Lutyens and Baker designed a city that radiated imperial confidence, a civilization saying, "Look upon our architecture, ye mighty, and despair," or at least admire the landscaping. The Raj Path stretched grandly from the Viceroy's house to India Gate. The domes blended classical Europe with Mughal India, and everything was arranged to project stability, dignity, and Britishness. In other words, it was destined to be handed over to someone else almost immediately. Because by 1931, the independence movement was roaring. Gandhi had marched to the sea, Indians were demanding self-rule, and the British were basically doing the historical equivalent of redecorating a house moments before the landlord evicts you. And yet, the beauty of February 10th is that history loops back on itself. After independence, India didn't tear down this imperial project. They repurposed it. The Viceroy's house became the President's house, the Council House became Parliament, and the architecture built to symbolize subjugation became the literal engine of the world's largest democracy. That is February 10th's favorite move. Take something built to last forever and hand it to the people who refuse to be ruled by it. Segment 5, the age of uncertainty, succession, satellites, and silicon overlords. Now we enter the modern anxiety portion of our program. February 10th is also the day the United States finally said, maybe we should figure out what happens when the president can't do presidenting. In 1967, the 25th Amendment was ratified, clarifying what to do when the president steps down, is incapacitated, or goes temporarily offline for maintenance. Before this, America handled presidential disability the same way we handle terms and conditions. We pretended we understood it and hit agree. Sections 3 and 4 are the greatest hits. Section 3 says the president can voluntarily hand power to the VP during something like a medical procedure, an idea that sounds normal until you realize it took nearly 200 years for us to invent it. Section 4 allows the cabinet to declare the president unfit, which has never been formally used, but has hovered over certain administrations like a cartoon piano suspended by a fraying rope. Then, in 1996, humanity faced a new crisis of control. Deep Blue beat Garry Kasparov in a chess game, marking the moment machines finally proved they could outthink us, at least in specific areas like chess, and probably assembling IKEA furniture. Humans insisted intuition would save us, but intuition is mostly an excuse for bad decisions. So it was only a matter of time before computers pulled ahead. And to top it off, on February 10th, 2009, two satellites smashed into each other in orbit at 26,000 miles an hour, creating thousands of debris fragments. Humanity essentially recreated bumper cars in low Earth orbit without the bumpers, or the cars. It kicked off new fears about cascading collisions, turning space into the world's most expensive landfill. So yes, February 10th is the day humanity said, we need clearer succession rules, smarter machines, and absolutely better space traffic control. Segment 6, Violence, Art, and Weddings, the Human Conditions bonus round. Finally, February 10th offers a grab bag of cultural milestones and tragedies because history cannot resist mixing heartbreak with lace. The Wagala massacre in 1984 stands among the darkest. Thousands of Somali Kenyan men detained, tortured, and killed in an operation the government concealed for decades. It is a day etched in grief, and it reminds us that state violence often outlives the headlines that try to bury it. But February 10th also gave us Queen Victoria's wedding in 1840, the bridal event that accidentally created the modern white wedding industry. She wore white to support the British lace sector, and the rest of humanity said, great idea, let's build a multi-billion-dollar industry around it. And she passed hemophilia into multiple royal lines, because history enjoys irony with its romance. Then comes Boris Pasternak, born on February 10th, 1890. Poet, novelist, and unwilling face of Cold War literary espionage. His novel, Dr. Zhivago, was banned in the USSR, smuggled to Italy, printed with CIA help, and then turned into a Nobel Prize scandal. Nothing says literary excellence like forcing an author to reject an award under government threat. And of course, February 10th boasts Stagecoach, premiering in 1939, Glenn Miller receiving the first gold record in 1942, and the debut of Death of a Salesman in 1949, followed by Arthur Miller dying on the same date decades later. Because apparently, February 10th just loves narrative symmetry. In conclusion, February 10th is not just a date. It's a mood. It's the universe clearing its throat and saying, let's make some history. From empires falling to satellites colliding, from revolutions igniting to scholars brawling, from architecture meant to last forever to machines proving we won't. February 10th reminds us that change arrives whether we're prepared for it or not. It is a timeline where brilliance and brutality coexist, where treaties spark revolutions, where weddings reshape global fashion, and where technology humbles us faster than we can Google the problem. And on that note, thanks for joining me on this time-traveling roller coaster. Tune in next time, preferably not on February 10th, because clearly that day has enough going on already.